This is the RCBS 4x4 progressive press. I've only seen a couple videos out there on this press, and I'd like to think that there's a few of you guys out there that have one, and hopefully this will inspire you guys maybe to get back to me, leave me a comment on your thoughts, your experiences with this press. It's been very good to me. Real quick, over there on the far side is a new addition to my bench. That's the Pro Chucker 7. I picked it up about a month and a half ago. I've loaded up maybe 1,045 ACP, well over 1,040 Smith & Wesson. It's an awesome press. If the comments are positive on this 4x4, maybe I'll do a follow-up video on that. So when I decided to get into reloading back in the late 80s, I went down to the local gun shop, spoke to one of the employees down there, and told him what I was interested in doing, and he pointed me in this direction. And so I have loaded tens of thousands of rounds on this, mostly 9mm, 10mm, 38 357, and 45 ACP. Does that make me an expert? No, by no means. But it does give me quite a bit of experience on this press, and I know what works for me. But you have to stay focused and not be distracted. So for years, while I was dry tumbling using crushed corn cob or crushed walnut shells, I would have the press set up this way, and I'm not going to drop any powder instead of bullet, but I'm just going to go through the motions. Station 1 on the upstroke, well, maybe I'm out of time. There we go. Was deprime and resize. Moving to station 2 on the downstroke, it would be reprime. On the upstroke, it would bell the case mouth. On the downstroke, rotating to station 3. On the upstroke, powder drop. Rotating to station 4. And you guys, if you notice, I have a mirror here. I would do a visual on my powder drop, and then I have this light that helps me see a little bit better inside the case. So I would set the bullet, crimp it, and then eject it. But like many of the presses out there, it has its quirks. The weak link is this nylon bushing. This nylon bushing rides in this metal sleeve, which in turn sets in a bearing in the center of the press. That bearing is one way. It will only allow the shell plate to turn in a counterclockwise rotation. Well, what can happen, for instance, if you were to not set the primer completely in station 2, when you would go to rotate, that would lock the press up. It's not going to allow the shell plate to move. So now you're pushing forward on the handle. The indexing rod is wanting to turn the shell plate counterclockwise, and because it's jammed, it's not going to go. And what happens is this nylon bushing would get rounded and stripped out. And I've gone through a couple of them, but I contacted RCBS, and I think they sent me out a package of 4 years ago, and I still have 2 new ones, this one and one that's in my toolbox there. So it just takes a call. They'll send them out if you run into the same problem. And of course, from RCBS, that's a warranty. That's a no charge. So for years, this is how I had my press set up. in 2015, I had taken a few years off reloading and wanting to get back into it. I got the press out of mothballs, I got it set up, and of course it wouldn't cycle. I started looking at it, and it looked like the sleeve had gotten some rust on it, and of course froze up inside the bearing there, and it just wouldn't cycle at all. So I contacted RCBS, and they said go ahead and send it to them, and they'd go through it. I shipped it off to them. I think I got it back about 3 weeks later, and they had installed a new nylon bushing, a new sleeve, and a redesigned indexing rod. I'm going to move up here a little bit, see if we can get that rod. Yeah. Out of time. So, if you look at the old indexing rod, and compare it to the new one, if I can get that in there. The old rod, it has that twist that travels over, I don't know, 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch. On the redesigned rod, that twist goes from there to about here, so I'm guessing over 2 inches. And what that does is that slows the speed of the rotation down, and that makes all the difference, especially when you're reloading 9mm. You drop your powder into the 9mm case. Case is pretty small, and it tends to get quite a bit of powder in there, and when you rotate, you can you come in there, you tend to spill some of the powder. Well, by slowing this down, that solves that problem. And I know from using some of the other presses out there, they've experienced the same problem, and they all have their fixes. It just so happens the fix for RCBS is this redesigned indexing rod. So I'm going to break away. I'm going to set up the single stage, and the reason being is now that I wet tumble, I have to deprime, and while I'm depriming, I'm resizing the case, and then I wet tumble, and then I come back to the 4x4 in the new setup that I use. So